Hey everybody, another day, another draft in the round of 32. That's the first round for CALLOUS Draft Duel. As you can see, bottom right corner timer, doing this before work, 8:30 in the morning, and looking forward to getting those strategic juices flowing before I have to go deal with children and pretend that I like them and all that obnoxious stuff that happens at work. So, before we get into this draft, I do just want to remind you guys, kind of obligated, that we are accepting donations. It's not like Callus Invitational, not expecting or needing thousands of dollars or some crazy amount, but I would love to build up a modest prize pool, a few $100, something like that. We got like 250 right now, which is not a lot of money. But if we could just build it up a little further, a couple hundred more, that would be fantastic. So if you've been enjoying the content and obviously the game's still to come, please consider donating. That is via PayPal link in my Discord server. I don't keep any of it. It all goes into the prize pool, and there is a link to that Discord server in the description, which you should join if you want to watch these drafts as they happen, if you want to catch the matches live, or if you just want to be involved in all things Callus tournaments. Alrighty, guys, that out of the way. We got a banger here. You guys on my channel who have watched me for a long time for ADVOU may not be familiar with these players. Player 1 in red on the left-hand side is Tratufo, and player 2 on the right in the blue is Zinc. These are not ADVOU mainstays, but these are two very well-respected draft players who have had success in Emerald Open and other tournaments as well. This is actually because I give the guys in my Discord server the opportunity to vote up which matches they're most excited about, what they want to see on YouTube. This is the second most voted for match of the round, and the only reason that I haven't done the most voted for one is because the draft isn't done yet. But this one's supposedly a banger. This is a really good round one pairing between two of the better draft players in a overall pretty strong tour. So very much looking forward to this, and without all that, let's get it out of the way. We're going to get into the draft itself. As you know, if you've been following these, we start with bans for the player on the left, and no surprise, very few times. It has gotten through a couple times, but most people don't want to deal with sand, don't want to play that way, and just get rid of T-Tar. One of the most common bans in the tour, fair enough. The response from Zinc is going to be Metagross, which is a little bit surprising. Meta is definitely one of the strongest pokes in this format. However, it is not usually considered ban-worthy. It's usually an early pick, but I haven't seen too many pairs actually outright remove it from play. But I don't hate that either. It's simply in doing so, inevitably you're going to let some really strong things through the bans, and maybe that's okay, depending on what your plan is. The next one, universal ban almost. There's been like one pairing that has allowed Skarmory through the bans. Basically hasn't happened in this tournament. People really don't want to deal with this Mon across 3 different teams, and I don't blame them because it is so restrictive in the builder. So Skarmory gets the boot, and then Gengar has actually been one of the most common bans in this tournament. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but it might be, even though in a different way, the same concept as with Skarmory in that it just, I mean, you could deal with it for a team or two maybe, but do you really want to have true answers, true counters for it across 3 different teams? How much of a pain in the butt is that? And how universally threatening is this thing between Hypnosis, Will-O-Wisp, every coverage move ever, Focus Punch, Boom, Destiny Bond, what have you? Probably a real pain, and it's probably one of those things where even if it isn't the most broken Pokemon in the world, I don't want to deal with this. It's too unpredictable. It changes how I build. Let's just get rid of it. So yeah, looking at the board now, a lot of powerful things have made it through bans, common first picks in this situation. You've got things like Raikou, Salamence, Snorlax, Aerodactyl, Zapdos. A lot of strong stuff made it through the bans here, and Tratufo, being our first player, has the pick of the litter, and a common first pick. Not necessarily the first pick that I would make, but a lot of people do feel this way. He's going to go for Snorlax. Like I said, I think there's pros and cons. You already know that both Sand and Skarmory, thanks to your bans, and Metagross, and Gengar, man, all 4 of those are going to get Slacks. You already know that those are not going to be there, so good starting point for a Snorlax drafter. But that being said, as good as Lax is, and there's no doubt that it is, let's just be very clear, I do think it has counterplay, whether it's loading up on Leech Seeders, loading up on Fighters, loading up on things that are faster than it, which is almost everything, with reliable sleep moves, and so on and so forth. I don't think it's unbeatable, but Lax is very good and is obviously going to force a certain type of response, not necessarily right now, but somewhere throughout the draft from his opponent. So I like the counter picks from Zinc. Zapdos is the all-rounder poke where you can't go too far wrong. You just take a generalist and let the draft come to you. Zapdos always going to be good. Nice, safe pick of non-committal. This will be good no matter what. Let's just grab them. And then Celebi, this is maybe a smidge early for Celebi, generally speaking, but you see Celebi get moved up the order when there is a Lax on the other side. So I think that's a fine counter, specifically addressing what his opponent had already taken. Two powerful pokes here. One of these is surprising to me. So Salamence I like. Gyarados I also like, but when his opponent is the Zapdos drafter, and maybe that's part of the thought process, maybe he doesn't want the Zapdos drafter to get the Gyarados, because then it's even harder to counter. So maybe he's like, even though he's got Zapdos, I still want to be the one with this Mon, as opposed to just letting him have it, because it's just a difficult Mon to deal with. Gyarados into Zapdos, questionable, but I mean, it's still only a 1 in 3 chance that the Gyarados and the Zapdos play against each other in the same game, and even within that, you may end up with things, HP Rock, DD Double Edge, T-Wave, whatever. Gyarados still has some things that it can do to Zapdos, even if it has to switch out immediately, or it may die in landing that big +1 Double Edge or what have you. So I don't think it's the worst. I think Gyarados is really way better in this format than it is in OU, because there's so few things that truly deal with it, and even things like Jolteon, like Lantern, like Raikou, whatever, that can obviously knock it into next week if they ever land that Thunderbolt. Keep in mind, after 1 DD, Gyarados is faster than all those things and can just one-hit KO them, so not as simple as, oh, I've got an electric, that'll deal with Gyarados. So I wonder if Zinc is going to go with the very common Milotic counter the moment that he sees Salamence on the other side. He does not go that way. He's going to go for Raikou here, which is just seemingly the pretty standard strategy so far in this format of early on, don't worry about counters, just take the generically most powerful things. But he's going to actually go for a protection pick right out the gate, where he could take something powerful here, like Aerodactyl or something. You know, he could just take Swampert, Milotic right now. He's going to go for an earlier than normal Dugtrio, and a big part of that, I think, is to protect the Celebi and the Raikou that he just took. So when I look at Dugtrio into what Tratufo already has, it doesn't seem exciting at all. So I think that is a future investment and a protection pick very early on, because obviously Dugtrio against Snorlax, Salamence, Gyarados, not very exciting. But I think, like I said, it's just as much about not letting Tratufo pick it, where it is good against Celebi and against Raikou, more so than it is targeting these 3 Mons. Plus, down the road, inevitably, Tratufo is going to pick up some things where the Dugtrio is going to be decent. I don't know that I personally would make this pick. This is the first one that I'm a little bit unsure about on Zinc's end. I think, for me, I just would have gotten greedy, kept it more standard, and just gone like Aerodactyl here, or maybe Milo into Salamence. But yeah, Dugtrio it is. He's got a disciplined strategy and is trying to protect his picks from very early on. And that's certainly his prerogative. So we swing it back to Tratufo here. And he is going to opt for, again, just 2 generically powerful Mons. I don't think this is anything specific. Maybe the second one is. Swampert is certainly just a more, this is generically good, you can't go too far wrong. The Regice this early might be because the Zapdos is on the other side, but it also might be because there are only so many special walls in this format. He's already got one of them, the Snorlax, which is one of the premier ones, and then Regice is good for sure. It's very possible that Blissey will get taken, which I'm kind of surprised that he didn't want Blissey here against the Raikou. I certainly think that sometime sooner than later, Zinc should consider taking or banning that, if it even makes it to bans. In a lot of other drafts, and obviously each draft is different, case-by-case basis, but in a lot of other drafts, I've seen Blissey outright banned or picked very, very early. I think even first picked in one of the drafts. So I'm really surprised that it's still floating around. I mean, I say this deep. We're obviously still early in the draft, but this is definitely deep for Blissey within the context of what the drafts have been up to this point. And indeed, he's wisely. Zinc is not going to allow Blissey to float back. I'm kind of surprised that Tratufo let that back, but I think Aerodactyl Blissey here, largely a no-brainer. Like I said, the only thing I'm a little unsure about is the Dugtrio. For me, that would probably have just been the Aerodactyl or a Milo or something here, but by and large, rock solid start for both players, just sticking with the standards. Certainly taking both Dugtrio and Blissey out of the pool when you are the Raikou drafter. That's got to be a good decision. And like I said, I'm surprised that Tratufo allowed Blissey to come back, but I would have snatched that up personally. Not that Regice is a bad pick or Swampert. I'm just surprised with how good Blissey is against the Zapdos on the other side, against the Raikou on the other side, and just generically against half the damn format, because there's so many things that don't really do anything other than special attack, and it's a bitch to build around. Kind of surprised that he allowed the Blissey back, but certainly in doing so, Zinc would have been a fool to let that back again. Gotta snatch it up now, and he does. So we get spicy here as we end round one. Tratufo, very targeted with these picks, I think. So what I would consider an earlier than normal Steelix, he's been... Steelix has really been valued highly in this. I think that... I mean, it's being used primarily as a Zapdos or an Aerodactyl counter, and when your opponent has both, then Steelix is where you want to be. So I think this is a very heads-up play. Steelix, a lot of the time in draft format, and in OU, frankly, is just overly do-nothing. It just kind of sits there and doesn't have any meaningful proactive pressure against anything. So I don't think it's a great mon individually. But man, you are against Zapdos, Raikou, Aerodactyl. Steelix is very much where you want to be. I think that is a fantastic pick from Tratufo. Normally, I would not be into Steelix this early whatsoever. But against double good electric plus arrow, that's like the dream for Steelix. I mean, might as well add a Jolteon or something on Jinx's side. But man, or I said Jinx. Zinc. Maybe he'll take a Jinx later. His name is Zinc. But yeah, man, against Zapdos, Raikou, Aerodactyl, Steelix where you want to be. I think it's a super heads-up pick. The Heracross, I think, is a targeted pick against both the Celebi and the Blissey. So that just feels like a very aware, very responding to what my opponent is doing decision for Tratufo. And it really demonstrates to me that he gets it. First couple picks for both guys, generic, just take the powerful things, but they haven't even waited around two. They've immediately gone into, I'm going to adjust my picks based on their picks. And frankly, I think that's the way to play the format. Frankly, I think they've got the right idea in doing it that way. So now it's going to fall on Zinc for bans. Back and forth, 2 more bans, and then Zinc is going to have the double pick once we get through those bans. This, I think, is really interesting that of all the things that he could ban here, this is what he's going to choose. So, Glalie? Huh. Glalie is a big underperformer, underrated, overperformer, undercosted in Emerald Open or whatever. The thing is consistently costed like 9 or 10 points or whatever in draft leagues, and it's good every single time. It is simply one of the most reliable spikers, period. No way around it. It gets him down, and very few things can stop it because Glalie can take a hit from just about anything. Not stab fighting, not stab rock, but damn near anything else. It can just easily take a Thunderbolt from Zapdos or what have you, and yeah, it's just pretty safe. It gets layers down, it gets taunt, it's faster than a lot of the other spikers, it blows up, ice coverage is good. I like Glalie. I don't know. Of all the things that you could ban here, why that? Bit of a head scratcher for me, but he must obviously respect them on. Simple as that. More standard ban on the other side. Starmie, don't think that's necessarily anything super targeted. I mean, Tratufo himself does not have any spikes right now, so I don't think he's panicking about, oh, I got to get rid of the spinners. It could be that Starmie is good, Bolt Beam coverage is good against like Mensgyra or whatever, but right now between the Snorlax and the Regice, you can handle any kind of off-star without an issue, so that ban also seems a little bit strange to me. I think Starmie isn't a poke that Tratufo should have been too worried about. The ban on the other side, Registeel, is interesting. I wonder why he didn't want to take Registeel against the Salamence, against the Lax, maybe kind of sort of the Gyarados. Registeel feels like something he might consider picking, but he might be trying to protect his own stuff. He might view Registeel as strong against Raikou and against Arrow, kind of in the same vein, not one for one, but kind of the way that Steelix is. Obviously, Registeel not immune to Electric the way that Steelix is, but it's still reasonably good against the Electrics. He might be viewing that as a protection pick. And then on the other side, I think this is wise. I like this better than the Starmie ban. Get the Milotic the F out of there. Absolutely. You're the Salamence drafter. He hasn't grabbed it yet. He's got the next picks. It would be different if Tratufo could just take the Milotic here, but he doesn't have that option. It's going to be Zinc picking next. So for sure, you are the Salamence drafter. Milotic has made it to bans. Get it out of there. That I certainly agree with as a protection pick. Plus, you're the one with the Swampert. Milo is good into Swampert, and you want to take good bulky waters out of the pool when your opponent currently has none of them. So Milotic is a pick I certainly understand and agree with. So Zinc here, Presto Changeo, 2 Levitators with the Flygon and Weezing double pick. I love the Weezing this early. One of the better answers to Snorlax, regardless of what the Lax set is. Weezing, if you go full defense with like Pain Split, Haze, Will-O-Wisp, whatever combo you want to go, Weezing deals with it. Weezing is also a good fighter check when there's already a Heracross on the other side. Love that pick. Think it's heads up. And love the discipline to take it this early. Weezing is a poke that can often be gotten late in round 2, maybe even in round 3. I think that is a wise heads-up decision. Love the Weezing pick there. Flygon, I'm not as sure. I like it better on Spikes teams. I like it better when your opponent is kind of rock spammy. Neither of those is the case here. I'm not sure where the Flygon fits into the mix. It's a poke that's been really respected in this and taken higher than I personally would probably take it. I've always been kind of a Flygon hater, even in OU. I just don't think it's that good, and I certainly don't think it's good in Emerald Open. But this is neither OU or Emerald Open, so maybe this is the format where Flygon is the man. Like I said, I'm not clear based on what's been taken from Tratufo why you would want that. It doesn't stand out as, oh, it's so good against Lax, it's so good against Gyarados, so good against Regice. It feels kind of weird into what Tratufo took, but it really could be as simple as, man, I'm kind of lacking Rock Resist. What's the best Rock Resist available? It really might be as simple as that. It might just be taking a Rock Resist that doesn't blow when several of them are already off the table, and he doesn't want to be left without at the end. Alrighty, other side. Speaking of Rock Resists, Claydol, baby. And then additionally, Dragonite. I dig it. If he doesn't feel like he needs anything in particular, wants to go for a hard counter pick, then taking a very versatile threat like Dragonite that can just be customized to do whatever you need it to do in the matchup. Can't go too far wrong with that decision into the Dragonite. One of my personal favorite picks in draft. You could just customize it to do whatever you want to do. Its move pool is so good. T-Wave, Heal Bell, Focus Punch, all the typing coverage. It learns Surf, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Dragon Dance, Earthquake, whatever you need it to do. Dragonite can deliver. Versatile pick. If you don't bring it in Game 1, which I think you probably shouldn't bring Dragonite in Game 1, you can customize it in between games in Game 2 or Game 3, mess with its set, and give it whatever you want, whatever you need to beat what's on the other side. So yeah, I mean, we can talk about that in a different video, but what order you bring the teams in and what mons you don't bring until later games, I think there's some strategy in that as well, because I think Dragonite is good no matter what, but I think it is even better when you don't bring it in game one, and then you start customizing based on what you know your opponent does and does not have left. I didn't talk about the Claydol as much because I don't know. It doesn't blow me away. I think it's good against double electric, first of all. Just having outright electric immunities, which of note, Tratufo has really responded to these electrics well. He's got Snorlax, Swampert, Steelix, Claydol, going to make life very difficult for Zapdos Raikou. Zapdos, I think, is going to be largely resigned. I could see it a lot of the time just being like sub-baton pass toxic with one attack or something. Largely a more supportive role because, man, Tratufo has really loaded up to hose those electrics and responded to that well. As a spinner, who cares? Because there's not a single spiker yet on Zinx's side, though he very well may pick them up later. But I still like the pick as a defensive option against the electrics. And then, if it happens to come in on an Earthquake or a Rock Slide from Aerodactyl, I think it makes sense there as well. So both of these picks, very fond of them for Tratufo. I think they make all the sense. Alrighty, back to Zinc. He is going to follow up here. Pretty hard pivot. Fortress Dusclops is what he's going to do here. Yeah, I dig it. So he's got one obviously more offensive-leaning team somewhere, and then between very defensive things, the Blissey, the Weezing, the Dusclops, gonna have some kind of stally team in here as well. Right now, Tratufo doesn't really have anything that's going to be ultra-threatening to the Fortress. He might respond here with like a Charizard or a Moltres or what have you, and he can also randomly throw Flamethrower on whatever, Gyarados, Salamence, Dragonite, even Snorlax if you really want. But Fortress has been highly sought after in this format. I've seen it go in like the top 5 picks a couple times. It's really difficult to build around because if you bring a bunch of fire stuff and then don't play against it, that stinks, and then vice versa. If you don't prepare for it, it only has the one weakness, so it can be really difficult and annoying to kill. And as such, I think this is a wonderful time to grab it. Can't go too far wrong. Dusclops is interesting. I don't know if that is a little bit of anti-lax in addition to having a ghost to go with your Fortress. It might be as simple as that. It might just be those two factors combined. Dusclops also randomly is good against like Alakazam and stuff, but that isn't a factor yet in this game. But yeah, like I said, with Gengar off the table via bans and with wanting a ghost to really make your Fortress good, because obviously Fortress is just negated by basically any Rapid Spinner unless you can protect the spikes. He wants to give it the fattest ghost with the best chance of protecting the spikes. That would be Dusclops. And if it happens to be good against Snorlax, who doesn't have Shadow Ball or something to that effect, added bonus. Okay, on the other side, back to Tratufo. He's going to immediately respond with a Rapid Spinner here, but I don't know about this other pick. You'll have to explain this one to me. So he's going to go with Donphan and Executor. I don't even know if Executor has been picked in this tournament yet, but certainly I think he could have gotten that in round 3. Someone is very much going to have to explain that pick to me. Let's start with the Donphan. That's the easier one. So it is, again, another electric immunity. He is just trying to hose the crap out of that Zapdos and that Raikou, and he's doing a pretty damn reasonable job of it. Specifically, as far as spinning into Dusclops is concerned, I don't know if they fixed it by now, but there's this, like, literally more than decade-old description on Smogon about Donphan, saying that one of its biggest merits is it can hurt the #1 best and most popular OU spin blocker. Dusclops? That must have been written in the Stone Age, because obviously nobody plays Dusclops, and it blows, and Gengar is everywhere, but that was not the case way back in the day. Like, legit, we're talking, like, net battles, so we're talking 20 years ago. But that was true once a long time ago. Regardless, the point stands. Donphan does actually hurt Dusclops. The Earthquakes do actually do damage. So if you're trying to spin, and specifically spin through Dusclops, then Donphan I think is a good pick. Plus, the aforementioned, all the electrics on the other side, and It happens to be a rock resist if Aerodactyl on the other side locks on rock slide. So the Donphan heads up pick with it, no problem. Donphan plus Doll makes a lot of sense to me against Zinc's team. The Executor, hey, you tell me. I mean, I guess it resists electric, but is that really what he needs right now? He's got so much of that. It resists electric, and it can Leech Seed or Boom on Blissey. I got nothing, guys. I mean, I would never. If you want Executor, which I'm not inherently opposed to, I'd be shocked if Zinc was planning to take Executor anytime soon, or frankly to ban it out either. So, in my mind, you basically 100% is a big number, but I think it's damn near 100% that Tratufo could have gotten that later on, somewhere in round 3, like maybe even like down here in round 3, without any issue. I don't think he needed to take it here, and I think he could have made a different pick. So that one, I don't know what he should have taken instead. There's a lot of good stuff still available, maybe Charizard or something, but I'm not sure about that one. I think I probably don't agree with Executor there. Okay, so the next pick, the next set of picks. I had to look ahead on this one. This is interesting. So he's gonna go Umbreon plus Moltres here, which is interesting. So the Umbreon is a special wall-ish, which is good because he only has the one right now for Blissey, unless you want to count Celebi. So this gives him a second or a third special wall, however you want to look at it, and I think that's fine. And then it also, being a Pursuit user and being good against Dusclops, it is also a protection pick against what he's already got. The Moltres is double duty. Not only is it a good threat, Will-O-Wisp against all the physical attackers, HP Grass threat against Swampert, obviously good against Regis, Steelix, Heracross. Moltres makes a lot of sense into the team. And additionally, I think it's a protection pick because it's one of the things that obviously Fortress does not want to play against. So in my mind, both of these picks, unlike Executor, make sense to me. And I understand why he would make them. So swinging it back around, these are picks closer to what I would have made in the previous round over the Executor. Tratufo is going to opt at this point for Cloyster plus Jolteon. The Cloyster's not exciting into electric spam over there, but just like Spiker Spinners in general, kind of at a premium. He now, if he wants the Cloyster to spin, kind of questionable. He's not good at it, but obviously he learns it. He now does have 3 spinners if he feels like he doesn't have to worry about that anymore, doesn't have to take junk like Tentacruel or Armaldo or something further down the line, so he's got himself a spinner. It's also the first thing that he's got that learns spikes. And then Jolteon is just a generally good poke. I don't know that it is like particularly incredible against Blissey on the other side or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's got some amount of play. It's not great against like Blissey Celebi, but it is a reasonable wall for Raikou. It does outspeed Zapdos, can hit him with T-Wave, whatever. And yeah, just a generally fast, generally good Mon. I think you can't go too far wrong with that choice. And his team, frankly, could probably use a little bit of a speed boost. He does have a lot of slower things. Lax, Swampert, Regis, Steelix, Claydol, Donphan, all kind of fat and slow. So I think not getting dominated in the speed department, which is a very relevant stat in this particular format, I think that adding something really, really fast like that is good. And then in a pinch, you could speed tie with Arrow. Not that you want a 50-50 for the game, but you got to do what you got to do when you're in a tough spot. Alrighty, wrapping up round 2 before we go to further bans, we have Regirock and Vaporeon. Vaporeon makes sense to me. I think we are starting to run low on the bulky waters. My Milotic got banned out if you count Starmie as a bulky water, which I don't, but that got banned out as well. Swampert's been gone forever. Unless you are comfortable with the lesser stuff, the Slowbros, the Blastoises of the world, which some people like. If you want a bulky water, which you got to have at least one, you probably even want 2. Time's running out, got to get one now. Moltres, I think, Regirock, when he just took Moltres, is sensible. It's also reasonable against Lax and against Mence and against Gyra. I like the Regirock pick here. A lot of flying stuff. Dragonite on the other side, Cloyster on the other side. Good amount of rock weaknesses, but also a good amount of rock resistances, to be fair, for Tratufo. He has clearly dominated the rock resist department. It's not even close. There's only Flygon. No Dugtrio doesn't count on Zinc's side. Yeah, the Vaporeon makes plenty of sense to me. Complementary Mon on an offensive squad can also be used on this like Blissey, 4E, Dusclops stall team that seems to be building. And like I said, running out of bulky waters, and we're about to go to bans. Very possible that if he had not taken that right there, Tratufo would outright take it off the table. So I think doing it now is wise, and we very well may still see bulky waters get the boot in these bans because they dry up quick. And Tratufo, like clockwork, is going to do that. He's going to immediately take a bulky water off the board. Clearly has a plan. Clearly wants to deprive his opponent of that. Slowbro is probably the overall best bulky water left. If you prefer Blastoise to it, fine. I don't know that Blastoise, with its value, of course, being that it spins, is amazing against Tratufo, who doesn't seem to be going super spikes focused. He does have the one spiker right now in Cloyster, but something that a lot of players have done is just at the end pick up 2 random spikers, just second to last pick, go, Quillfish plus Roselia, which, whether you end up actually bringing them or not, is going to give your opponent something to think about and may mess with the way that they build. But yeah, not surprised to see Slowbro get taken there. I think the overall concept, more so than caring about spikers or spinners or whatever, I think it is as simple as taking bulky waters off the board when you've got hard-hitting physical attackers like the Salamence, like the Gyarados, like the Dragonite. Makes sense to me. Zinc going to go a totally different way, wants to not be cheesed, takes Ninjask away. Ninjask has been picked, believe it or not, in a few of these drafts, and it's actually been banned quite a bit. I don't know if the ban is so much, man, this thing is so powerful, man, this thing would crush my team, as much as it is, again, like a Gengar, like a Skarmory. The fact that that is there changes the way that I have to build. I have to bring stupid Roar, stupid Haze, all this crap that I don't want to bring. I have to bring Perish Song just to deal with that crap. I think people just don't want to deal with it. It can randomly just speed boost up. Pass to Hariyama. Hariyama clicks Belly Drum. You lose. That kind of crap. Or you pass to Marowak. It clicks Swords Dance. You lose. I think people just don't want to deal with that kind of thing. So, not wanting to deal with cheese, just get rid of it. Zinc says there will be no Ninjask in this draft. Least surprising ban ever. 4 bans in a row. Bulky Waters. Blastoise for Tratufo off the table. Pretty clear what he's doing. Pretty consistent. Bang, bang, bang. Milo, Slowbro, Blastoise. Doesn't want his opponent to have Bulky Waters. And truly, I mean, he's done a good job at this point. Truly, the options for Zinc running pretty damn thin. I mean, you're starting to look at, like, Lapras here. Walrein. I mean, the choices are pretty damn thin for Zinc at this point. If he still wants a bulky water, he's had his chances, and they've been largely banned out, so good thing he grabbed the Vaporeon, because obviously in hindsight, Slowbro Blastoise here, pretty clearly that Vaporeon would have been banned if he didn't grab it, so good for him that he got that. Seems crucial that he got that in hindsight, and now, is one enough? Is that it? Is that what you're going with? You're going to use Flygon and Weezing as kind of sort of crappy hybrid bulky waters? Or are you desperate enough? Are we taking Lapras? Are we taking Walrein? Time will tell. But we do have one more ban, and wisely, this makes sense to me. Get Charizard out of there. Threat against Celebi, threat against Blissey, threat against Fortress. Not something that Zinc, with his lack of bulky waters, as we just discussed, not something that Zinc is all that damn prepared to deal with. I think Charizard has got to go. That ban makes sense to me. And we are all banned out. It is time to wrap up this draft with the picks. Starting with Tratufo, gets the first response after the Charizard goes. And he is going to opt for Kingdra plus Tauros. Kingdra's been getting a lot of love in this tournament. I don't know I don't know if this is like the dream Kingdra matchup. The Vaporeon handles it fine. Blissey handles it fine. Celebi handles it fine. It's not something that he's unable to wall. I don't think the Kingdra is a huge deal. But it's still a good poke, and it's still just always going to be a threat, and maybe he also doesn't want to play against the Kingdra. This pick doesn't blow me away because I do think Zinc has the answers for it, but when you accumulate pressure over the course of the game, I mean, you can't just view Blissey as, oh, my opponent has 6 special mons, I've got a Blissey, I'll just stop them all. Eventually, whether it's surprise focus punches or booms or crits or whatever, any given wall can get overwhelmed. So having a special wall doesn't just magically negate every special attacker. Kingdra, I don't think, is like, oh boy, whoa, didn't see that coming. Zinc's going to get smoked. But it's a threat, and if you get caught with your pants down, or your wall is low, or your wall is dead, or you made a mistake and you get your wall boomed on, what have you, Kingdra could be a pretty big problem and just get you. So, like the Mon, don't know that I love it in this specific configuration, but it's a good Mon. Tauros, sure. I mean, there are a couple good normal resists on the other side. Aerodactyl doesn't count, of course. Nobody's switching that into Tauros, but there is the Fortress, the Dusclops, the Regirock, and otherwise, normal spam, relatively safe. Tauros is a good Mon, and obviously, there's been no attempt for Tratufo here, other than like Steelix. There's been no attempt to even bluff of, I'm making a stall team, I'm making something defensive. This is all very aggressive on his side, clearly preferring a proactive offensive approach. Very possible, we'll see how it rounds out, but it's very possible that all 3 teams for Tratufo end up being offense leaning, whereas there is at least one clear stall team on the other side from Zinc. And I mean, yeah, depending on how the picks end up, maybe he can even make a second one. I dig this pick. He's going to go for Armaldo and Ludicolo, but let's discuss the Armaldo. That guy has been picked several times. The common denominator, basically universally, you're picking it into Snorlax. That seems to be the big thing. It's not only a spinner, but it is largely a lax counter. It's bonus points if you happen to have it against like Celebi or something that it really threatens, which is not the case here. But being a lax counter and a spinner has been enough to get several people up to this point to pick it, and here it is making a round 3 appearance once again as a play against Snorlax. Ludicolo is interesting, good against like non-status Swampert. Obviously it doesn't want to get hit with something like Toxic. It is very vulnerable. If Salamence, Gyarados, Dragonite are all just going to be DD-HP flying, then I think Ludicolo is a lot less exciting, but it does have some merit. It can wall things like Jolteon. It can be annoying against Lax, can be annoying against Swampert. It is relatively customizable. It doesn't have too many sets, but there's a wild difference on how the Swift Swim Sweeper set versus just like a Leech Seed Toxic Staller set functions and what you want to do to try to counter those things. I don't mind the Ludi. It has not seen a lot of love. I haven't seen a lot of Ludicolo at all in the first drafts of this tournament, but I don't mind that Mon. I think it's good. And we'll see if he plays it and how he puts it to use. These picks feel like a steal this late in the tournament. Boy, oh boy, are these some goodies. So he's going to go late Miltank and really late Hariyama. I've seen the fighters, Hariyama, Medicham, those kind of guys. I've seen those guys get picked in the first round multiple times throughout this tournament, but there has been a distinct lack of fighter love in this tournament. Medicham somehow still on the board, as is Breloom, as is Machamp, and Hariyama is finally just getting picked now. Now, granted, I get it. Fighters really somehow are actually not that great into Zinc. Between the Zapdos, the Celebi, the Dugtrio Revenge Kill, the early Weezing, the Dusclops, the Moltres, Zinc is actually really well set up against fighters, and fighters are normally very good in this format, pretty highly sought after and have a lot of use. They crack through the Reggies, they're good against Lax, they're good against Blissey, they're generically just hard to switch into. If you try to get cute and you switch a flyer into them, they all learn Rock Slide. Fighters generally very good in this format, but in this particular draft, for one reason or another, and I get why on both ends, like if you're Zinc and you take fighters as well, Aren't you against Salamence? Aren't you against Gyarados? Double Bird with Intimidate. There's Dragonite on the other side. There's Executor on the other side. There's Claydol on the other side. I can see why both players are like, man, fighting Pokemon as good as they are on paper are not that good against my opponent. But nevertheless, I mean, I could never this late leave Hariyama on the table, regardless of the on-paper stuff and what you think it is or isn't good against in this particular draft. It's just too good of a mon to not take. You're just going to go the whole draft and that thing just goes unselected. No way, Jose. I'm grabbing Hariyama for sure. Gonna make it work. Even if it's not like the world's most premium attacker, just run some like defensive, obnoxious knockoff set, and it'll still be good. Miltank, pretty straightforward. Only has one Bell user right now in the Dragonite. Yeah, just a generally good mon. Has Bell if he needs it. Could go with some kind of physical team. I could see it with like the Gyarados, the Heracross, whatever, just like giving it a little bit of T-Wave support, giving it Bell support. I think it's a good complement, just a good, safe, generic Gloomon on a physical offense, which certainly at least one of Tratufo's teams looks like it is going to be leaning that way. Speaking of fighters, which I guess the players had forgotten about until now, here is Medicham, and here is Alakazam. We just discussed the fighters as in general. Medicham hits hard, is strong, is a good poke, is usually picked way, way sooner than this. On the other side, you've got two flyers with Intimidate, which makes it a little bit worse. Medicham has some advantages over the other fighters. It does learn Baton Pass, so if you want to get a little chain going, you have that. It also has Recover. It also can just randomly, if you're against like Weezing or something on the other side, you could just give it Psychic. It can also pass Calm Mind, but I don't think those things are going to be as applicable here. I think it's being used straight up just as a fighter. Obviously has merit against Snorlax, against Regice, against Steelix, against Cloyster, what have you, against Miltank, against Tauros. I'm into the Medicham. I think both of these guys taking fighters in this round is wise. It's not perfect in either case. They both do have padding against fighters, but they're just so dangerous. No one can predict perfectly. You can't go too far wrong taking one. Alakazam, I dig the special walls as it has been distributed. It is Regice and Lax, so two really good ones here for Tratufo. It is Blissey and Celebi over here, and that's largely it. If you consider Registeel Wall, fine, that's been banned out. Alakazam is interesting. It's just a total tempo play. If you get it out ahead of the Dragonite, the Gyarados, the Salamence, whatever, like if it Calm Minds as you switch in, the thing can absolutely destroy you. But then the same is true in reverse. If one of the Dragon's DDs, Alakazam is worthless because +1 HP flying or whatever is just going to absolutely obliterate you. It's very similar to the Kingdra. It's very similar to Tauros. It's just an aggressive mon. I don't know that it has any specific purpose or any rhyme or reason, but if you get it in good, you can customize it to have whatever coverage on the special end you want it to have. It also learns Encore if that ever matters. It's just a dangerous mon. Don't know if it'll be a deal breaker or not, but probably something Tratufo doesn't want Zinc hiding in the back in a crucial game down the road. Fighting theme continues. Love these picks here. These picks that I almost didn't type in. There we go. Machamp and Houndoom. Dig it. The Houndoom, I think, makes a lot of sense against the Umbreon. Houndoom in general is going to support the fighters that he just took. Houndoom is good against Celebi. Kind of surprised, actually. It's good against Zam, too. I'm kind of surprised that Zinc let that through. Houndoom is a great response. It makes a lot of sense. It's good into the Celebi, like I said. It's good against the Dusclops, for sure. What are you going to do? You can't even burn it. And then it is good against the Zam. I think Houndoom makes a ton of sense into what's on the other side. And I think that is big boy value. I think that was a steal this late for Tratufo. That pick makes a ton of sense to me. Machamp, I don't have too much to say beyond what I already said about Hariyama. Yama obviously can go with the defensive route and just go with a fatter set and go with knockoff, go with whirlwind, what have you. Machamp doesn't really have that luxury. It's resigned to a more offensive role, but it does have the same offensive merits and drawbacks that the Hariyama would have, minus the ability to just go with Belly Drum. On the other side, Dodrio and Sceptile. Zinc doesn't want to be left out of the normal choice banders. He took Tauros on the other side. Fine, I'm going to take Dodrio. And he does. He's given himself at the end here just a couple little baton pass options. Dodrio and Medicham both learn it. Maybe he'll get a little chain going. Zapdos learns it. Celebi learns it. Maybe he can do a little cheesy McCheese with that. Sceptile on the other side, no problem with that pick. Good against Swampert, good against Cloyster, good against Claydol. A little bit of insurance against the Lax. Throw that Leech Seed around. A little more speed control against a team that, like I said, I think the faster team all along has belonged to Zinc, and that there's a lot of slow stuff. In addition to all the stuff that we talked about before for Tratufo that is slow, you've now added a Hariyama, you've now added a Machamp. Those things kind of chunk along as well. So the speed advantage with Dodrio as well, another fast mon, blatantly belongs to Zinc. And as offensive-minded as Tratufo's teams appear to be, and I think they will be, Zinc has probably 2 out of 3 offensive teams himself. There's a clear stall team somewhere in here for Zinc, but very clearly he's got offensive capability as well. And as a whole, in general, I would say that this is a largely offensive-leaning format. It's much easier in this to just build janky offense than it is to build a proper stall. So I think seeing 2 or 3 offensive teams from every player in every draft is gonna be pretty common. All right, guys, let's bring it home. Last round of picks for everybody. Hypno and Cradilly. I believe the first Cradilly appearance of the tournament. I like Hypno in general. Don't know that I love it here. I like it as a counter pick to Breloom and just things that spam Spore or Sleep Moves or whatever. Jinx, Breloom, Smeargle maybe, because Hypno has Insomnia, can't be put to sleep. So I like it in those instances. I don't know about taking it here, but it could just be generic Special Wall, has Baton Pass, can't go too far wrong. I don't know that the Hypno is going to get used in this matchup. Like I said, I like it more as a counter pick as opposed to a straight up pick. I kind of suspect that the Hypno will not end up making the team for Tratufo, but time will tell. The Cradilly, bit of a head scratcher. Not clear if that is he responding to the Dodrio? Is the Dodrio worth responding to? It does resist normal. These last 2 picks, I'm truly not sure. Someone will have to explain those to me. I don't know that the Hypno or the Cradilly are going to end up getting used, but those are his picks. And then, I don't know if this is a running meme or what, but this is like the 3rd or 4th time at least that, for whatever reason, the last pick is Nidoqueen. I don't know if the guys have gotten together in a server of draft players and been like, guys, you know what would be funny? Every last pick, every draft, we're going to take Nidoqueen. We're going to see how long until CALLOUS notices. None of us are going to play it because it sucks. But it's a dinosaur with boobs, so we're all going to pick it, and we'll see when CALLOUS notices. It's probably not that level of QAnon, deep state conspiracy theory. That probably didn't happen, but for whatever reason, Nidoqueen has been the last pick in 3 or 4 different drafts. It's interesting. Not a huge Nido person myself. Don't think it's that great. I feel like there's plenty of other things that he could have taken here instead. But I don't think any of these last picks, I'm not trying to rush through them. I don't think the Hypno, the Cradilly, or the Nidoqueen, I don't think any of those are going to end up on the teams. But maybe I'm wrong. That's the whole point of the format. You're going to end up using 18 of these Mons, 6, 6, 6, but you've drafted 21 of them. So there's always going to be 3 extras, and keeps the opponent guessing. Even when you get down to the last game, as opposed to, there's only 6 things he could use. I know exactly what he's got. Instead, there's 9 things that he could have, and there could be some pretty serious variance there. What if, for example, you do not think that Ninjask, who got banned out, what if you think, he took that second to last? There's no way that that's going to be there. And then they bust out the Ninjask Hariyama cheese in the last game. That could be the difference between winning and losing the game, and therefore winning or losing the match. Not an example that's applicable here, obviously, because Ninjask is banned out. But you guys get the concept. There are more Mons in play than there are Mons that are going to get used. So, keep them guessing. But yeah, my prediction is Hypno, Cradilly, Nidoqueen. None of them make the team if I had to guess. Okay, those probably irrelevant last picks aside, what do you think? Take a look at the board. I think, personally, I mean, as with any draft, there's always powerful Pokemon on both sides. That's just the way the format goes. But I think that I favor Tratufo's end of this draft. I think Zinc might have a distinctive lack of ways to actually win. I think he was relying a lot on the Zapdos and the Raikou and the Aerodactyl to generate offense, and I think Tratufo has responded to those Pokemon, maybe a little bit less so the Aerodactyl, but as a whole, I think Tratufo has responded to this Pokemon really, really well. Negating the Electrics, oh boy. Have fun with that if you are Zinc, between Snorlax, Swampert, Registeelix, Claydol, Donphan, Jolteon. Good effing luck. There's going to be at least 2 layers of padding on every single team for Tratufo against those Electrics. And I think that Zinc is going to have a really difficult time punching those through. And then, I look on Zinc's side. I see a lot of other just, good Mons. Blissey, Vaporeon, Moltres, Fori. That stuff's all good. But none of them are win conditions. And because Tratufo largely covered the things that Zinc can actually win with, like I said, I can absolutely envision some scenarios where Zinc has a tough time punching through and actually killing his opponent. So I don't think this is a stomp. I don't feel like Tratufo blatantly outdrafted, outplayed Zinc, and it's gonna be a crime scene. But I feel relatively comfortable, at least as comfortable as you could be in draft. I mean, it's just such a crapshoot. You really never know. Anything can happen. You don't know how they're going to build. You don't know what's going to end up matching up against what. There's obviously luck factors, so on and so forth. But all that stuff pending, I think I like Tratufo's end better. I think that he really negated the best Pokemon from Zinc's squad for the most part. Like I said, maybe a little bit less so the Aerodactyl, but I don't think he's utterly boned by the Aerodactyl either. And yeah, I think the matchups are going to line up well for Tratufo. That being said, I think that for Zinc, I think one of the strongest points on his end, I think that Fori, Dusclops, Blissey, Stall team that feels like it is inevitably coming, I think might end up being difficult for Tratufo. I don't know that he's going to be able to punch through that. I think that Zinc might be able to reliably count on getting the W when he does bust out that Stall team, but you've got to win 2 games out of 3, and I don't know that he's got the offensive muscle to do that, especially when some of these Mons that maybe could do damage, Flygon, Ludicolo, Alakazam, Sceptile, these things really, really appreciate spike support, which, save that Fori, he did not provide. He did not pick up a late Smeargle, a late Quillfish, a late Roselia, whatever, and maybe the spikes would have helped. There are a bunch of spinners on the other side, but my overall takeaway is that, like I said, Tratufo negated Zinc's threats pretty well. Zinc may have a hard time dealing damage. I think Zinc will win with his Stall team when that comes out. So if I had to give you a more specific prediction, I think it goes 2-1, but I think it goes 2-1 in favor of Tratufo. But it's draft and you never know, and it's all a bunch of garbage. So you guys let me know in the comments what you think. Who do you think won this draft? What picks do you agree with or not agree with? What is your prediction for what happens when these matches actually play out? We will find out together when the matches play. You know it'll be here on YouTube, but in the meantime, if you've been enjoying the content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I've got 1,000 subs, guys. I'm famous! Appreciate you guys watching. See you in the next video.